The role of CMO is getting more complex day after day, right? And for a couple of reasons. It's the only role within the C-suite that everyone has an opinion on, including the wife, the spouse of your colleague.
From the outset of this season of Conversations with MarTech, we've wanted to have a conversation about brand marketing. We were just waiting for the right guest to come along. Today, we welcome Benoit Garbe. He's currently the president of QUINT Advisory and is a Tracksuit advisory board member. Benoit, thanks for joining us today.
Mike, glad to be here and thank you for having me.
All right. So during your career, you've worked in management consulting and for some of the most recognized brands of the world as both chief strategy officer and chief marketing officer at Anheuser-Busch InBev. For me, it seems like whenever we talk about brand, the conversation always seems to come back to measurement. Is brand measurement still as hard as it's made out to be here in 2025?
Yes, Mike, 100%. You measure what you treasure, right? Listen, as you say, I worked, I started my career at LVMH, luxury goods. I worked for CPG companies like Diageo and AB InBev, and advise companies in B2B space, healthcare, insurance. And guess what? Measurement matters, no matter what the size of the company or the industry in. You asked whether or not measurement was getting harder in 2025, right? I don't think I agree. I think we're getting more data, smarter tools. AI can help us make sense of it all, right? So I think measurement is getting more flexible and easier to use, right? I think what's really getting harder is the role of marketers, right? The role of CMO is getting more complex day after day, right? And for a couple of reasons. It's the only role within the C-suite that everyone has an opinion on, including the wife, the spouse of your colleague. It's getting harder is the pace of change, right? If you think of marketing, it was digital, it was e-commerce transformation. It became about data and MarTech. Now it's all about AI transformation. So you need a serious appetite and resilience to change as a marketer. But I think more importantly, what I want to stress is the lack of consistent definition of what it means to be a marketer, right? So for many years, you had the communication, creative CMO, then became the digital CMO. And I would argue we need to change, and there was an opportunity to become the value creator CMO, making sure that the CMO becomes the center of the growth agenda for the enterprise. And this is where measurement finds new meanings, right? So measurement is no longer about measuring backward and justifying your investment and saying, hey, we made it work. But really measurement as a tool to define the growth move, define, the jobs to be done. And then by using those measurement tools, you become an architect for growth. So this is my take on measurement.
Yeah. And the tools and the things we measure now, we used to always see everything in the rearview mirror, right? It was a delay. And now with predictive analytics and things like that, like you can see what's going on now, but you can also see a little bit ahead, which is a big difference when you're trying to react to changes in the market.
Yeah. And the data can be in a way static as well, but you start mapping what needs to be done to grow, right? How do we enter categories? What customers can we cross-sell? How do we expand in willingness to pay? So those are all growth levers. With the right data, you can start mapping out not only the strategy, the plan, and then the measurement that follows through.
Right. So I want to set up the next question with a clip from a previous episode where our guest, Mark Stuse, talked about B2B execs rating B2C companies for marketing talent and marketing leaders.
A lot of CEOs in particular that I interviewed talked about the fact that they were really after more business acumen and that they were, some of them were already rating large B2C.
As an experienced B2B, B2C marketer, what are your thoughts on that idea? Could B2Bs learn a lot from what B2C marketers know, especially when it comes to brand building?
Well, first, Mike, I love your observation and the provocation. I've done a lot of consulting, and what I love in advising, executive across industries is seeing patterns and starting codifying and building playbook that can be applied across industry and companies. So I do agree with you that a lot of B2C marketers can bring a lot of wisdom, a lot of skill sets and experiences that would be tremendously relevant in the B2B context, right? So a human-centric approach to strategy and planning, far greater collaboration across the marketing mix, a pluri skill set around planning and resource allocation. I think there is a lot of learning that could be brought. I would argue, though, is you've got great B2B organization and talent that could teach and bring very fresh perspective in the B2C context, right? So think about B2B organization like Google, Visa, Shopify, Salesforce, amazing companies. And you can imagine what those talent could bring into the B2C context. One thing I can tell you, Mark, is regardless of B2B or B2C or the size of the company, I know there are fundamental truths and skill sets that make great marketers. And I've got 5 of them, right? I call them the 5 powers of great marketers. The power of curiosity. The world is changing fast. Consumers are changing. Technology is always evolving. Be curious, learn, try new things, right? The power of empathy. Understand the who, but also understand the why. Go deep, right? Use big data, but also small data. The power of collaboration. I think marketers have done a great job collaborating within the marketing function, right? Social, e-commerce, media, experiential. I think this is really well understood how to coordinate. But I think there is a bigger opportunity for marketers to build bridges across functions within the enterprise. How to work better and have common goals with procurement, supply chain, sales force, etc. The 4th one is all about whole brain thinking. Great marketers think creatively, conceptually, but also very rigorous, discipline, and analytical at the same time. And then the last superpower that I see in great marketers is the power of intentionality. Being focused, being very intentional, what it is that we need to get done, and then remove everything else, remove the distraction, right? And I think those are 5 skill sets that no matter what you're in B2B or B2C, if you have those, you can be a great marketer.
You know what I love about that is despite all the talk that we've had here in the past few minutes about AI and analytics, those superpowers were just as relevant 25, 30 years ago as they are today.
Exactly. Yeah. It's human power in a way.
Yeah. What makes a great marketer really hasn't changed as much. It's the tools at their disposal and the way they do things that have changed.
Right. 100%.
So we often think of revenue as sort of the ultimate measure of success, but revenue often follows behind your marketing activities. So my question for you is, what are the signs of a healthy brand that you look for beyond revenue? Or maybe a better way to say that is, before the sales really kick in, like, how do you know your brand is on the right track?
Yeah. And by the way, that's been a long debate, and I think will continue to be a long debate, short term, long term, and so on. The fact is there is no magic bullet, right? And I think the mistake many organizations make is trying to figure the one metric that's going to tell it all, right? And I've seen it, we implemented it. The real opportunity is creating one source of truth. So in a way, an integrated dashboard where you start bringing together multiple metrics, sales, finance, marketing metrics, where you can see everything all in one place, right? And you stop having a siloed view of the world and performance when every function looks at their own metrics to define success. So that's one opportunity, right? To your question around, leading indicator, right? The fact is equity, right? What we call brand equity, the measure of consumer sentiment and engagement with your brands. I've proven, and there is a lot of paper and science on that, I've proven to be strong leading indicator of sales and growth, right? The issue is often it's too slow. You get there, 6 months, 3 months after your marketing activities. They can be cumbersome. They can be expensive because they are costly. Your sample size is not always representative of, the different pockets, the different consumer targets. And it hasn't been really effective, right? What I'm seeing in the market is there is a shift. You've got new entrants, new disruptors. And you mentioned, right, I'm an advisor to Tracksuit. It's a fast-growing company in the brand equity, brand measurement space. And it's faster, it's more affordable, it's user-friendly, it has dynamic what-if scenario, AI functions, so you can really interact with the data and understand, how you're doing. So this is game-changing because suddenly you've got access to that equity data much closer to your campaign and your activities at point of retail, right? There are really three, to go back on your question, I see 3 metrics that are great lead indicator of performance. One is top of mind. Are you present when someone is thinking of entering your category? Consideration. Are you seen as superior, different, trustworthy, more innovative? And advocacy. Are people talking about you? Are they recommending you? Those 3 metrics are fantastic predictor of future sales.
Yeah, it's the recall, right? I'm looking for a product or a service. What are the first 3 brands that come to mind when I am in that motion?
Exactly. But the issue is we used to measure that so far down the road, it was really hard to make a clear association between what you're doing in the marketplace, the different part of your marketing mix being deployed. Now we can bring that much closer with far greater accuracy.
Do you think business leaders today have lost the patience that's required to build a brand?
I would frame it differently. I think it's just a reflection of the new reality, right? So I'm not sure it's loss of patience. It's just matching the new expectations. So if you're a PE-backed portfolio company, the investment thesis, the value creation is to be delivered within 2, 3, 5 years max before exit. So you've got a mandate to get the results going, right? Same thing if you're a publicly traded company, you've got quarterly investor reports and you need to show, your strategy, your investments are showing signs of impact. And even if it's early signs, you need to be able to show progress. I think behind your question is still that debate between long-term demand creation and brand building and kind of the short-term, very measurable, very tangible, conversion metrics and performance marketing, right? And I think for too long, it was seen as an either or and framed as a binary, dilemma, when reality is the end. And you need to really think about brand building investment as a multiplier of all the work you're doing from a performance marketing standpoint.
Yeah. People talk about brand and demand. It is both. It's not brand or demand.
It's both, right? And one is a multiplier of the other, right? So if you don't do it, you miss that chance of really accelerating that growth. The second thing I think is super important, and I'm seeing it through different companies I speak with, is often brand is by default associated with campaigns and feel-good TV commercial or feel-good PR events. The reality is brand building is everything the business or the enterprise does, right? Brand is capturing the purpose and the destination and the mission of the company. Brand is the culture, is the employee behaviors. Brand is capturing the innovation, capturing the product, the experience, the services of the company. Its brand is what the CEO says and what he decides to talk about or not talk about. So I think there was a massive opportunity to reframe again what brand building is. And this links back to my my proposal earlier to really think of the CMO as a business architect rather than just being head of comms and head of creative.
Yeah, it's every touch point, every point of contact in the process, whether you're dealing with customer success or customer service or sales or brand carries through all that.
And the marketer can be the coordinator, can be that person who brings this common understanding across all the different functions. So in tandem with the CEO, everyone is walking in unison, walking in the same pace, in the same direction.
All right. So the last question I'm going to ask you is one we're asking everybody on season 1 of Conversations with Martech. And that is, what did you want to be when you were 10 years old?
Mike, that was a great question. I had to go through memory lane when I was 10. I wanted to be a builder. I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to build cities. I wanted to build skyscraper bridges. And that's what I wanted to be, an architect.
All right. So, well, you ended up building brands instead.
I did. And interestingly, in building brands, you've got a little bit of the magic, the creative, the design side, but you also need the rigor of an engineer. So I guess I found my way.
All right. Benoit Garbe, thanks for joining us here on Conversations with Martech.
Mike, it was a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
If you like Conversations with Martech, you're going to love what the Martech Conference is planning in March. The Spring Martech Conference takes place March 25th and 26th, 2025. It's online, it's free, and it'll be more interactive than ever before. Get your free pass today and join the Martech conversation.